Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to share their take on today's top stories as well. We try to have a little fun as we go along. But today we're going to start with what is surprisingly becoming one of the top races on this year's ballot. 2 seats on the Public Service Commission. This is the state body which, among other responsibilities, sets the rates for Georgia Power. Both seats up for grabs were in Republicans' hands going into the race, and Democrats flipped both PSC seats. In District 2, Democrat Alicia Johnson defeated long-term Republican incumbent Tim Echoes, and in District 3, it was Democrat Pete Hubbard topping Republican incumbent Fitz Johnson. Meanwhile, the race to the finish line came out with a big win for Andre Dickens. 4 years ago, he needed to force a runoff to become Atlanta's mayor. This time, it was seemingly much easier campaign. Dickens fended off 3 challengers to knock out the convincing win at the polls. Another 4 years he'll be doing it as the city's top job. Last night, Mayor Dickens told backers there's still much to tackle in his second term.
I hope you're feeling so excited, Atlanta, and I hope for what we can do for the future for the next 4 years. And I hope you don't think that I'm going to slow down in my second term. No, you know me. I work from can't see morning to can't see night. If you know anything about me, we work all day, we work all night, and we get the job done.
All right, another interesting high interest race in the metro area was the president of the Atlanta City Council. This seat opened up when the incumbent Doug Shipman decided he wasn't going to seek re-election, and it was current City Council member Marcy Collier Overstreet narrowly edging out her opponent by less than 2,800 votes. It's time to go inside the numbers. We have Raul Bawley. He's the politics reporter for WABE-FM. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
All right. When you look at Tuesday nights as a whole, how much of what we saw really reflects the local issues versus the national mood?
You know, we talked to the Democratic Party chair of Georgia, Charlie Bailey, and he said that, you know, these were nationalized, the issues around affordability. And again, as you mentioned, this was the Public Service Commission, which oversees power rates with Georgia Power. So making that argument that, you know, within the affordability, what people are paying for their bills, yeah, this was nationalized in a way with these races. But you're also hearing that on a number of local races. Housing affordability, that came up in the Sandy Springs race for mayor. It came up in the Atlanta mayor's race. So, you know, pocketbook issues, you know, that was very key to President Donald Trump winning. It looks like it was very key for a lot of the races yesterday.
Yeah, the turnout inside of Atlanta was stronger, much stronger than expected for an off-year race, right? What factors do you think drove people to the polls?
I don't think you can dismiss the fact that, you know, even though Andre Dickens, you know, didn't have any well-funded candidates against him, he still spent $1.5 million. We may end up finding out $2 million on this race. So he did put, you know, money into this race. And there was, of course, as you mentioned, the Atlanta City Council president's race, other open seats like District 2 with Amir Faroqi stepping down to fill the election to fill Marcy Collier Overstreet's. And then you had other competitive races around the region. Sandy Springs mayor, Roswell mayor, South Fulton mayor. So you had people that were coming out and this was actually one of the concerns I've been hearing from Republicans for months. You know, many of the voters in cities, in municipal elections are Democrats. And so they had that edge with those statewide seats, even though they're held by Republicans, that they were facing that wave.
Yeah, you mentioned the pocketbook issues earlier, right? Do you think this election was more about those pocketbook issues or more about party identification?
You can't, dismiss party identification. You know, there were some people trying to link, to President Donald Trump. There was, obviously conversation about the federal shutdown. But, back to the Sandy Springs mayor race, you had local issues coming up there. You had one of the candidates talking about Sandy Springs having its own school district and immigration rates and local role that came up. So you had other issues. There are obviously important local issues that come up over in, we've heard conversations on some of the Atlanta City races about what to do with MARTA. because, you have the Moore Mart attack. So you can't walk away from the local issues, but affordability, housing affordability, property taxes, those pocketbook issues are important. And what you're hearing from Democrats is that needs to be a focus for next year when you have so many big races on the ballot. Yeah. You've got John Ossoff's seat up for re-election, open governor seat, open lieutenant governor seat, and more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw flips on both sides for the Georgia Public Service Commission. That marked a significant shift. What was most likely the reason why Georgia's voters went that way?
Again, a couple of things that I've mentioned. First of all, you had strong Democratic turnout coming out of those municipal races. And then people, look, for those of us who've covered the Public Service Commission for years, there's always that struggle that so many Georgians don't know what the Georgia Public Service Commission does in terms of setting rates for Georgia Power, overseeing Georgia Power, and then other things that they do in that space. And those races are almost always at the end of the ballot, but having that at the top of the ballot and having that focus on it probably helped a lot. And again, what's happening in Washington probably had effect. There were so many factors, but those were some of them.
Yeah, 30 seconds left real quick here. You've covered a lot of Georgia politics for years now. And how does this election night fit into the bigger political picture that we're seeing for this election cycle?
Some of the folks I was talking to at Andre Dickens' party, which, really people were talking about the PSC race. They're wondering if this is of a longer shift of moving toward Democratic politics. They were talking about what happened in the late 90s and early 2000s about Republicans winning small, what the word was, foundational races. Is this the beginning of that for the Democrats in Georgia? We'll see next year.
Yeah, we will see. Raul Bali, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your insight today.
No problem. Thanks for coming.
All right. Later on this hour, we're going to be joined by Andre Dickens, mayor of Atlanta, and Peter Hubbard. He's also going to talk with us more about their election night victories and just a few. So we want to stay tuned for that. Let's take a look at our forecast for today. We're looking at temperatures getting up there once we get into the afternoon, back into the 70s for highs for Wednesday and Thursday. Friday will be there as well, but we'll have a few more clouds working in by the afternoon. Rain starts late Friday going into Saturday. We'll have some scattered showers off and on through the day, and I think that may linger into Sunday morning. By Sunday afternoon, that begins to clear out. But look at the colder air that comes in behind this front. Oh boy. 68 for the high on Sunday, and then a 20-degree drop in temperatures on Monday. Only 48 for the high. And look at that overnight low on Monday night going into Tuesday. Yeah, at or below the freezing mark there. We'll get up to 53 for the high. So get your mind right, folks, for that colder air that's coming our way. Hey, we'll be back. Don't go anywhere. We're back right after this. Welcome back to the show. We're staying on top of yesterday's deadly plane crash in Kentucky. A cargo jet belonging to UPS Airlines crashed shortly after takeoff from Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport, erupting into a massive fireball. The aircraft bound for Honolulu was loaded with more than 38,000 gallons of fuel at the time of the crash. Louisville mayor confirming that 9 people have died so far, and that number is expected to rise. Another 11 people were injured. The FAA and the NTSB are now investigating. We're going to continue to follow this story throughout the day on 11Alive Plus and 11Alive. We can bring you the latest information. All right, today the Supreme Court will hear arguments regarding President Trump's tariffs. Small businesses owners are saying the president didn't have the authority to impose those tariff changes. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. And Alice, go ahead and break down this case for us and when we could see a ruling come from the high bench.
Yeah, so it takes a while for the Supreme Court to rule. They're going to hear the oral arguments today, and then typically at the end of the term in late spring, kind of early summer is when you'd actually see the ruling. But at issue here is whether President Trump actually has the authority, whether he overstepped his authority in using these emergency powers to unilaterally impose tariffs on trading partners all around the world. Some our closest allies, of course. That has touched off quite a bit of confusion for a lot of business owners, the reason that we're now seeing this lawsuit that's made it all the way up to the high court. And it's strained some relationships with some of our closest allies, of course, Canada, one of them, the European Union. There have been a number of relationships that have been through some ups and downs throughout the course of these tariffs. And there are, of course, many members of Congress in both parties who think that they should be consulted. Traditionally, that is the role that Congress would have to offer oversight over tariff-making, decision-making, trade decision, policy decisions, that sort of thing. So the question is whether the president could use these emergency powers to do it without that traditional hand-in-hand oversight from Congress. And that's what the Supreme Court's going to start considering today.
Gotcha. So the president over the weekend flirted with the idea of going to court today, listening on the arguments. How much of a sigh of relief it is that he won't be in the gallery?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a security perspective, that was something that he mentioned, that he didn't want it to be too much of a distraction to have him there, and that it would be quite an undertaking to secure the president coming into the Supreme Court. So in that sense, probably it is a sigh of relief for the folks that would have been in charge of that. And perhaps the people that are arguing, maybe it's a little bit less pressure to not have the president of the United States sitting in the high court, though it's pretty high stakes no matter how you look at it. He had said initially that he thought he was going to go, but he's busy with other things today. He's has been hosting Senate Republicans at the White House, and then he's headed to Miami for a business summit also later today. Yeah,
sounds like the White House is already working on a plan B if they lose. Talk about this plan that's coming down from the Treasury Secretary.
Yeah, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent did say in an interview on CNBC that he felt confident that the Supreme Court justices were going to rule in favor of the administration and allow these tariffs to stand. But should that go the other way, then he said that there are other mechanisms by which the Trump administration can continue to levy basically the same tariffs that have been in place. He said that these emergency powers that they've been using have been the cleanest way to do it, and that they provide the executive branch, the president, with the largest amount of latitude and flexibility to impose tariffs however he wants and to adjust them depending on, as he has done, the changing relationships, in some cases using tariffs as kind of a leverage and pivot point to enact other parts of his agenda as kind of a foreign policy tool. And so these emergency powers have given him the largest amount of flexibility, but Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, said there are many other ways to go about it to keep the tariffs that they consider essential to the economy and to the Trump agenda in place.
All right, Alice, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate it. All right, folks, you're watching The Take. We got plenty more stories for you coming up right after the break. Stay right there. Well, here's where the federal government shutdown sits on this Wednesday. This is now officially the longest in U.S. history, surpassing the previous high mark set back in during the holidays of 2018 and 2019. A stopgap spending bill to end the shutdown failed for the 14th time yesterday in the Senate. The next vote has not even been scheduled yet, but some senators are saying they are hopeful a deal could be made this week. As the shutdown drags on, confusion over whether furloughed workers will actually get paid once this ends. Yesterday, it was reported that the Trump administration was signaling that back pay may not be automatic. It might not be an automatic move, a move federal unions are calling both unlawful and unfair. Joining us now is John Hatton. He's with the National Active and Retired Federal Employee Association. He's going to break down what really is at stake for hundreds of thousands of federal employees. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Talk to us about the latest news from the White House. How distressed are you from hearing this news?
It's certainly very disappointing. I don't know if I would say distressed. I think the law is extremely clear on this. This was passed during the last long shutdown. It says these employees shall be paid. Now, some unelected staffer at the Office of Management and Budget may have a slightly different view, and interpreting language that says subject to funding being enacted or appropriations being enacted means Congress needs to be explicit about it. But I think in a worst case scenario, you've seen, I think, bipartisan support for providing back pay to federal employees. In the worst case scenario, Congress needs to step in and be even more explicit than it already has. But I think the interpretation the administration officials have had on this takes saying it's subject to funding, which means, program needs to be reauthorized, which even under the continuing resolution, everything that was previously authorized is authorized. So what we're seeing is, it's very clear that people should be paid. If it's not clear now, Congress can make it even more clear, and I don't think it's even likely to be a serious subject of negotiation. So we're very hopeful that people will get back pay. At the same time, we're very disappointed that this position is even being taken by the administration. So
it's more like a policy dispute over a legal one, or what would you say?
I would say it's a legal interpretation dispute of language of the law. In which case there is a very clear language, if you read it, when people says furloughed employees shall be paid, that somehow the administration is not reading that as clearly as it is. And I think, you've seen Republican senators like Ron Johnson, who is a more conservative senator, say this on the Senate floor, that this law provides and requires back pay. So it's not I wouldn't say it's a partisan dispute, because if you go in, there's bipartisan support for providing back pay in Congress. It's a very fringe legal interpretation of what this law says.
If furlough workers are denied, let's say they are denied their automatic back pay, what legal or congressional remedies could your group or other federal unions come up with?
Well, Congress could be even more explicit that the appropriations that they're passing to reopen the government do include payment for this, so designating funds specifically for these payments. So that's one thing. I don't know if they're debating specific language because of how clear the language already is. So it's pass another law to restate the law that's already been said is a tough ask. But if payment isn't made, I would expect lawsuits. We wouldn't necessarily be involved in those, but I think plaintiffs would arise.
What's your message to federal workers out there that may be watching this as this unfolds, wondering if they'll ever be made whole?
I don't want people who are already in a distressed financial situation, missing potentially another paycheck, to worry more than they need to. I think this is a threat that won't likely come to fruition, but I can't say with 100% certainty, given what the administration is saying, that that's what's going to happen. But there are some hopeful signs that the shutdown will end. I think there's hopeful signs in Congress that there is support for providing back pay that is pretty broadly bipartisan. So that's good as well. And, there's 650,000 people across the nation that are furloughed. I don't know the exact number in Georgia, but there's 60,000 federal employees in Georgia, whether at the CDC or Robins Air Force Base. So you have a lot of people that are relying on this, that through no fault of their own might miss a paycheck because politicians in DC can't come to an agreement on what the government should do. And I think to hold this over their heads is deeply troubling. Yeah,
John Haddon, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for your insight today.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Plenty more stories for you coming up right after the break, folks. This is The Take. We're back right after this. All right, it once was a shopping safety net. You buy 3 things and you send 2 back, no big deal, right? But that era is ending fast. From Nordstrom's Rack to Amazon retailers are quietly tacking on fees and reshaping how we shop. Let's bring in our consumer expert, Morgan Ward. Morgan, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
All right, for years, right, free returns was like that was the American way, right? The shopping promise that you could always bring it back, right? What changed to start retailers now charging us to bring things back?
Well, it's really expensive for them. We return about $850 billion worth of stuff every year. So 1 in 5 things that we buy online, we return. And that's just expensive, like restocking, marketing, and repackaging. That's really expensive for them. So they're trying to put a cap on it because we've become return addicts.
Do you think that retailers are walking a fine line here? Do you think that, when you return something there, it'll really start to curb our impulse buying or just frustrate loyal customers?
Yeah, I think that once you give something for free, like returns, and then you start charging for it or not giving back the full cost of the product, that's really frustrating for customers. And it's a big change in their behavior. We have to, as customers, make better choices. I think Amazon at some level is trying to help us to some degree. They give you an alert now, like, oh, this is a very highly returned product, so consider buying it before you purchase. So some retailers are trying to curtail it a little. Gotcha.
Okay, they're trying to change this up a little bit. All right, we're seeing phrases like Riz and Aura Farming leaping from TikTok to T-shirts. How are these brands learning to cash in on slang before it fades out?
Yeah, brands want to talk to, connect with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, so they're starting to use their phrasing. So I think 6-7, if you haven't heard the number 6-7, I don't know where you've been, but 6-7 has a canned water now. Girl dinner, which is something you hear a lot about, and Instagram has a cookbook for real girl dinners. You start hearing Italian brain rot and Riz, which are two common phrases in advertising, on t-shirts, so all of these things are a way of connecting through language with the younger customer.
Yeah, are they just trying to follow the culture, you think? Is that what it is?
Yeah, you got to stay relevant, right? You got to be able to talk the talk.
I guess, yeah, and walk the walk or dance the dance, right? Whatever it is. All right, it seems like our homes are becoming branded spaces. What's driving this shift in the style of to status decor?
Well, people like to express themselves, and brands are a really easy way to express themselves. It's like a shorthand. Everyone knows what they stand for. So, Porsche has made a chair, and Glossier, which is a millennial brand, has a throw blanket. I think Ferrari actually has some high-end speakers they did a collab with. So it's a nice way for people who already tap into those brands, buy those brands, respect those brands, to show their identity at home as well as, when they're out and about.
So you have BMW products in your home? Is that what we're thinking about here? Is that what we're saying?
That could be what we're saying. Actually, Elle Magazine, which is a funny one, has its own residences in Miami. So you can just live in an Elle Magazine sponsored home. So I don't know where it's going, but it's certainly going somewhere.
Morgan, how long do you think these trends will last? Is this like a flash in the pants with these things, or will they kind of have some staying power?
Well, I think a lot of things are quicker than they have been in the past just because of social media, and people see trends and adopt them faster than disadopt them faster. But things like a brand entering your home, I could see having some staying power simply because those products stay a long time. You use them for a long time. They're durable. So they may sort of live with you for a few decades.
Yeah, there you go. Morgan Ward, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you. All right.
Thank you.
Hey, take care. All right, folks, interest rates have been cut, but people are still looking for ways to stretch that dollar out. We're going to discuss a few when we come back right after the break. Stay with us. Last week, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates for a second time this year, but don't expect your wallet to feel any relief just yet, right? Credit cards interest may tick down pennies, fixed loans won't budge, and saving yields could start to slip. But where's the opportunity for families to stretch that dollar as far as they can? Consumer Reporter joining us now is Lisa Gill. Lisa, welcome back to the show.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. When you hear interest cuts, right, interest rates cuts, people often expect immediate relief, especially on their credit cards. But why doesn't it work that way?
Well, the cuts are actually really tiny. I mean, 1/4 of a point, you're not really going to see as it goes through the system. It's only going to translate, as you said, to sometimes pennies on the dollar. But I will say this, this is the second cut. And although I'm not an economist, I'm a consumer reporter, it does signal to us that probably more cuts are coming in the future. But there are two other places besides credit cards that you might see a change in your payment, and that is adjustable rate mortgages. And so those are the kind that are tied directly to prime. And so those, you might see a change, might be $50, $30, but hey, that's something. And also I would say between credit cards, adjustable rate mortgages, also HELOC loans, so home equity lines of credit, or even maybe the home equity loan, if they're tied to prime, definitely with the credit, you'll see a change in what you pay every month. And it could be, if there's more cuts coming, you'll see it go down even further.
Lisa, what is the biggest mistake you think people make when we hear about rates cutting or rates starting to fall?
Yeah, they rush to refinance their homes or rush to get that home equity line of credit or home equity loan, because there's sort of that feeling of like euphoria of like, oh, this is now, credit will be cheaper. But I would say at this point, with only 2 rate cuts, although again, I'm not an economist, I would personally say just hold off for that kind of loan or that kind of refinancing until we see some additional cuts. I mean, again, 1/4 of a point each time is not, it's small. It's not big enough.
Well, we see many Georgians relying on online banks or credit unions. Where can they still find the best return on their savings?
Believe it or not, your local credit unions typically have some of the highest interest rates, both for savings and certificates and money market accounts. Those are, we kind of forget about your credit unions, but credit unions, it doesn't have to be necessarily affiliated with a profession. It can be just in your neighborhood, but don't hesitate to go knocking on their door to find out what kind of return you can get for your savings accounts and other sort of similar accounts.
Yeah, you mentioned more cuts coming down the road. Well, that could actually change.
Hopefully.
Hopefully,
Yes.
yeah. You can keep your fingers crossed.
Hopefully, yeah.
How would that change for borrowers and what they would pay, or is it just too small to move the needle?
Well, it compounds over time. So basically, you would see that third, maybe fourth cut, and you start to see like a real change in what that prime rate is. So you would see a lower rate for the interest mortgage, both for the ARMs and even a fixed 30-year. You mentioned earlier, those fixed 30-year mortgages, you're not going to see any change in your payments today at all. And same with car loans and a lot of student loans. But it's the anything that's tied to prime. But once those cuts start to happen, you'll see some of those figures ticking downward. And if you're in the market to buy a home, this is not a bad time.
Yeah. All right, Lisa, thanks so much for your insight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
All right. Take care. All right, coming up, we're going to talk to Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens. He's sitting right here with me on the set, folks. Yeah, we're going to talk to him about his plans after winning another 4 years. He's right after the break. Back now to recap last night's election results, and Andre Dickens steamrolled to a convincing win at the polls, securing a second 4-year term as Atlanta's mayor. And Mayor Dickens joins me right now here on the set. First of all, congratulations to you, sir.
Good, thank you.
That was a great win. Speaking of that, 4 years ago it was a little different. You had to be in a runoff. How does it feel? How does this feel different?
Oh, this feels good. It feels great. 4 years ago, it was 13 people plus me, 14 of us, and I was blessed by God and good people to get me into this runoff. And so last night was a lot easier, winning by 85%. I'm just grateful that Atlanta chose me once again, re-electing me for 4 more years to continue the progress we've made.
What does that say to you about your from 4 years ago to now, right? I mean, what the people are saying about you?
Yeah, people had doubts that, there was a large amount of people running last time, and so some folks didn't know if I had the capacity to win an election. They thought I could do the job, but they didn't know if I could win that election. And so I'm grateful that those people chose me last time, and then now 85% of the people said yes. This is basically saying that our progress has been, approved by the people. We're headed in the right direction. I always talk about Atlanta being a group project, that we do this work together, so City Hall, but it's also engaging the public, making sure they know what they can do, whether that's nonprofits, whether that's houses of worship, businesses. So we've been doing a lot together, and I'm really excited about 4 more years.
You mentioned Atlanta together. I remember you running on a promise, one Atlanta, right? Is that still the case, or are you evolving that a little bit?
Yeah, no, we're still one Atlanta, because you remember when I ran in 2021, there was a secession plan by Buckhead. People were talking about leaving the city. There was a Buckhead City movement. You don't hear that anymore. I won Buckhead handily this time, and it's because crime is down. We're answering the phones at City Hall. We're doing the work of the people. We're building housing. We're making sure that the garbage is picked up on time, and that any problem that arises, we jump right on it. We tackle it. I have a great team in place, and so the city's in good shape and it's moving forward. We got a AAA credit rating. Atlanta's being listed as the best city in the nation to live by Money Magazine and Bloomberg and others. So we're on the right path.
Absolutely. You talked about affordable housing, right? And so what's your first move in that direction?
Yeah, so we've been trying to build 20,000 units of affordable housing over 8 years. So from 2022 to 2030, that's been my goal. So far, we've built or have under construction 12,000 of those units already in my first 4 years. So we want to continue to build those units, and anything that's, to make sure that any housing that's not substantial, that is abandoned or vacant, et cetera, that we want to build on that and make it a quality living for people. But we want to make sure that we build housing for the whole spectrum, whether that's people with no income, like those that are experiencing homelessness, all the way up to our police and firefighters, school teachers, all the way up to anybody else. So we want to make sure that this city works for everyone, that people can live here, that work here, and that they can enjoy a quality of life in the city.
You talked about crime as well. What lessons did you learn from your first term that you're going to take into the second term?
Yeah, that you have to have a balanced approach to crime. You have to make sure that you do policing and non-policing activities to bring down crime. We have the best police department in the nation, the best police chief that I've chosen, Darren Shearbaum. He's been doing an amazing job. And our recruits are coming in, just like 250 or more right now in training. This is an outstanding police department that is attracting people. So you do the police work to make sure that we cut down on violence in that way and to solve crimes and to make sure that people don't want to commit crimes. But on the other side, it's the non-policing stuff, the things we've done with our youth. Youth crime is down 56% in the city of Atlanta. Our nightlife is safer. Our parks are safer. You think about when you bring down youth crime, you bring down crime across the whole city. So we had the third highest drop in crime in the nation with a 44% reduction in homicide. So the city is safer. You can go to the parks, you can go to nightlife, you can go to Lenox, Phipps, all over the city, Pond City Market, Buckhead Village, and you can enjoy your shopping experience in peace and think and know that your city's got your back.
I love what you did with the youth.
Yeah.
Right? Is that still going to be a priority? Are you doing other things? Or is it evolving, or are you kind of staying down that same path?
You know I love the youth.
Yeah.
I declared it the year of the youth in Atlanta. You know, I'm an Atlanta native, APS baby that grew up in this city. This city helped raise me. So I want to continue the year of the youth. We did it in one year and it went so well that I called it the year of the youth every year. And we work well with the Atlanta public schools. We work with the nonprofits. We've been giving money to the nonprofits. Hey, if you're serving 100 kids, here's some money to help serve 125, 150. You've been serving 6 kids, teaching them chess. Well, here's some more money, teach 16. And we've been helping the nonprofits and the churches and others be able to do more of all the good work they've already been doing. And so we've been a platform for help. Our Department of Parks and Recreation, our At Promise Centers, our Midnight Basketball program is the largest and the best in the nation. So, and then we had 6,000 young people employed making a minimum of $15 an hour. So these teens didn't jump in your car or break in your house. They had money to go do what they wanted to do because they were working this summer. And it's led to APS having the highest graduation rate ever in the city's history. And it's 3 percentage points higher than the state of Georgia. So yes, I'm all in on the youth, and we're going to keep getting better and better and better till we're the best place to raise a child in the nation.
Yeah, love it. We got 1 minute left. I want you to look at the camera there and tell people what they can expect for the next 4 years.
Well, first I want to tell you thank you. Thank you, Atlanta, for choosing me once again to be the mayor of Atlanta. This has been my dream since I was 16. And so for the next 4 years, we're going to work together on regional issues. So Atlanta's tackling its problems that we've already resolved around crime, making sure that our affordable housing is growing, making sure that we build and preserve all of these places for people to live, and helping our youth. Now we got to deal with our regional traffic and transit issues. We need to expand MARTA, improve MARTA, and homelessness. Homelessness is a regional challenge. When people are mentally challenged or drug addicted or find themselves poor in the suburbs and the rural, they come into the city of Atlanta, and we have to deal with that. And so we want everyone across the region to help, to help eliminate homelessness, to get people back to work, to get people safer environments to be in. And so we're here as a partner in the city of Atlanta to partner with the entire region on transit and on homelessness. We can do this together. And so for the next 4 years, you can count on me working all day, all night on behalf of the people of Atlanta.
Another 4 in the 404.
That's right, another
There.
4 in the 404.
Appreciate you joining us.
All right, man.
Congratulations to you. Thank you so much. All right, now on to 2 races, 2 seats for the Public Service Commission. Both were in GOP hands going into last night, and now both have flipped to Democrats. Yeah, we have Peter Hubbard knocking out incumbent Fitz Johnson nearly by 2-1, a 2-1 margin. And Peter Hubbard joins us now. Peter, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you. It was a hard-fought win, but it was well earned.
And what did the voters tell you about, tell you they want first? Is it rate relief or long-term reliability?
Well, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, but definitely the top issue is affordability. And so that's first and foremost, is we've got to work on the affordability crisis and these energy bills that have been skyrocketing. And then a close second after that is the data center issue. There's a lot of issues at play. We also need to chart a path for our clean energy future. So there's a lot at stake, and a lot of good work to get done in this last year of the 6-year term. So I only have 1 year, and I have to start running all over again next year, but I'm eager to get to work.
Yeah, you and Alicia Johnson flipped the seats. What specific shift should Georgians expect from the PSC with this new voice, or these new voices?
Yeah, well, it's important to know that we flipped 2 of the 5 seats, so we still have work to do to get the majority, and we'll get that next November, and we'll be working hard towards that. But what I think voters can expect out of us is exactly what we've been promising, which is accountability and a voice, a centering of the people on the Public Service Commission, and really trying to put their interests first. And that has been lacking at the Public Service Commission. It's why I got in this race. And so there's a lot of work to be done again, but that I think is what they can expect first and foremost.
Is that how you plan to rebuild the public's trust with the commission?
Yeah, exactly. I want to demystify the Public Service Commission, what it is, what it does. They set how much you pay on your power bill and where that energy comes from, whether from coal or gas or from renewable resources. This is an incredibly sunny state. We should be tapping the sun, farming the sun, and the voters can't expect us to do the people's work on the commission.
The commission approved a base rate freeze through 2028. What parts of a bill can you still move up, and how will it limit you?
Right. Well, that rate freeze is only about half your bill, and people pay bills, not rates. And so I do want to go back and re-examine that, because we didn't have the chance to, we were promised about a $3 decrease on our bills at the end of the last year integrated resource plan, the long-term power plan. We were promised a lot of things. I remember those promises that haven't been kept. So I really want to go back and examine the rates that we have, see where there are areas to lower those bills for the people. And there's a number of different things that we can do on that front. Like I said, there's a lot of work to get done, and I'm just eager to get to work.
Peter, as you step into this new role, what do you hope Georgians will remember from this moment 4 years from now?
Yeah, well, I think that when you fail to lose sight, when you lose sight of the public, and you're not centering the people in your work and the public service, it's right there in the name of the Public Service Commission, then the voters hear that, they see that, and they will respond accordingly. And so, I think that we have to always center them in all of the work that we do, and I think that they'll remember that this is what happens when you're not really centering the people. So. Again, this was really a tremendous result, a landslide, if you will, and I think that they'll remember that, and we're going to carry this momentum forward into next November.
All right, Peter Hubbard, thanks so much for joining us this morning, and again, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Folks, an air taxi could be soon coming your way. We're going to discuss that after the break. Air taxis. Welcome back to the show. From the Jetsons to Georgia Tech, the future of flying taxis could be closer than you think. But before you can summons a ride through the skies over Atlanta, there are some major speed bumps still on the runway. And we're talking about airspace rules, the charging stations, and whether cities are even ready to handle the big takeoff. Let's navigate through these uncharted waters, or airways, if you will, with Professor Marilyn Smith, the director of Georgia Tech's Vertical Lift Research Center of Excellence. Welcome to the show, Marilyn.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. When you look at the latest design and prototypes, how close are we really to these flying taxis being around on a regular basis? Is it years or is it decades?
No, I think it's years. We are definitely close in terms of the vehicles. There are several in certification right now, Joby and Archer, for example. One of the things that we do have to work on is to make sure that we are safe when we operate these air taxis. We need to make sure that our vertiports, where they're going to come and land, because they're not just going to go to the airport, they're going to land, in the city. So we want to make sure that we don't have problems such as outwash and downwash, where the general public could be in trouble there. You can get knocked over if it's strong enough. You want to make sure that we're all flying at the correct heights. We're not just talking about air taxis, we're talking about delivery vehicles as well. So you're going to have a mix of different vehicles, small to large. So we want to make sure that we are all very, very safe. And so we're working on those regulations and the research to fuel those regulations right now.
Professor Smith, I want to know how this looks in real life, because when I think about taxis, I think about a taxi can take you anywhere you want to go in the city. But you talked about these landing ports and that kind of thing. Would it be, at least maybe from the beginning, you'd only be able to land in certain spots, or would they be actually like taxis?
No, they won't be like a taxi per se. We're going to have specific landing spots. I think initially people thought, we could just land anywhere, but we really can't, because we have to make sure the public is safe. Probably what we're talking about are more like shuttles. Way back, we used to have the airport shuttles. They would pick you up at certain spots and take you to the airport. Something like that, where you would go to a vertiport, maybe take MARTA to a specific location, go up to the top of the building, and you'll have a vertiport there and take off. Go to Peachtree to Cab, go to Atlanta Hartsfield, go to Augusta, someplace like that. So it's not going to be a taxi per se, not like Uber, but more like a shuttle service.
Gotcha. How is it different from a helicopter that we already see in the sky? Or is it the same?
Well, we could use helicopters for this. In fact, they did in the 1970s and 1980s in New York City, but there were problems with that. We're working to make sure that we don't have those kind of problems. The other thing we're doing is on these new vehicles, such as the Joby and the Archers, is we're trying to make sure that the business case is such that an operator can actually, survive with that. Helicopters are quite expensive to operate. With these new vehicles, we're trying to create a paradigm where safety is number one, but it's safety with a business case, a civilian operations case.
Yeah. How is Georgia Tech shaping the technology behind this aircraft?
Oh my goodness, we have been working for years and years on this. Georgia Tech is one of the 3 universities in the country who have been working on vertical lift. In the Center of Excellence, we've been doing it since 1982, but Georgia Tech, our aerospace department started as a vertical lift program in 1930, believe it or not. So we've been working for my entire career on this, developing vehicles, developing safer vehicles, and now we're working on a lot of those different aspects, not just the vehicle aspect, but the siting of vertiports, making sure that people are safe around the vertiports. Are the passengers going to be comfortable when they fly? Because we're going to be flying, in some parts below the building height, and that can get quite uncomfortable if you're not used to it.
I got 30 seconds left here. How realistic could Atlanta be as one of the launch pads for this service?
Oh, we already are. There's a lot of interest here. People are talking about where to site the vertiports now, where to get out. Here's the thing. Atlanta's traffic, it's no surprise Atlanta traffic is not good. A small fraction of people using this service can dramatically impact our traffic. I don't think it'll start immediately, but it does have the aspect maybe in a decade that we can start looking at some relief from all the traffic that we have.
All right. Thank you, Professor Smith. Really appreciate you joining us, and we look into the future to be like the Jetsons, more like the Jetsons anyway, to fly around. Thanks so much.
Yes.
All right,
Thank
folks,
you.
No problem. When we come back, folks, a final look at your forecast plus my final take when we return. Stay right there. Pretty cool start, but we're warming up nicely as we head through the afternoon today. 74 degrees will be the afternoon high temperature, above our average. In fact, well above our average for this time of year. 74 again tomorrow, which will be almost a carbon copy of today. We'll get up to 75 on Friday, and then that will bring some changes. We start off with the sun, but the clouds will start to increase ahead of a disturbance that's going to come through and bring us some rain. Much needed rainfall. 40% chance for that rain to be around. I think it will linger into Sunday, and then by Sunday afternoon, we'll start to clear it out. Drier air works back in, but we'll cool down. You're looking at 68 degrees for the high temperature on Sunday. 20-degree drop on Monday, 48 for the high. Even our overnight lows, starting off in the mornings, will be very cold. In fact, around or even below the freezing mark in some instances. 53 degrees rather, will be the high temperature by the time we get to Tuesday. All right, time for my final take. Today, more than ever, people are complaining about being pulled in 10 or more directions by emails and text and lists, you name it. I mean, it's all leading to burnout. Because of this, a new wellness idea has been gaining some ground. It's called the Invisible Day. Now, it's not intentionally ghosting people that you love or neglecting your responsibilities. It's a structured pause to let your mind and your body reset from all those external demands. Mental health experts agree invisible days potentially shift how our body and our mind will function. Stepping away from constantly being online creates time to tune back into yourself. Some even say it sparks creativity. Sounds like a winner to me, but caution, invisible days don't pay. So watch how many you take. I'm getting ready to become invisible right now. Now you see me, now you don't. Maybe tomorrow. Have a good day.